I believe you have a house in America, Mr. Stocky.
I have a house in America.
I was wondering, where are you domiciled for tax purposes?
I am domiciled here, and I pay full taxes. And can I just say, as you have chosen to be personal and invidious, let me share a little story with you. One of the great things that is essential to Britishness is a sense of public duty, that you do things for nothing with organisations that can't pay. Ms. Penny, who has been advertising these great left-wing virtues, and I were due to debate for a very impoverished little society called the Thomas Paine Society on the virtues of a republic on the one hand and a monarchy on the other. I was prepared to do it for free. She insisted on trying to charge such a large fee that the event had to be cancelled. Now, I think that is as mean and grasping as some runt comedian, and I will not be lectured to by a jumped-up public school girl like you. I came from the bottom, and I will not have it.
Excuse me. May I respond to that?
Right of reply. Go on.
I think I deserve a right of reply to that. I personally feel that asking to be paid...
Did you or did you not do what I've just said?
I was going to respond to that, but...
Why not do it straight away? Did you or did you not claim such a large fee that the event had to be cancelled?
No, I didn't, Mr.
Well,
Starkey.
then every member of the committee is lying, and you, clearly as usual, are telling the truth.
No, this is not what was said to me. I
have emails. That wonderful, wonderful method of tracking.
No, I don't think I'm going to respond to it. One of the reasons the event was cancelled partly because they couldn't find a speaker in time because they were trying to fly me out, and part of the reason that the cost for that on top of my being asked to be paid for 2 days' work because I actually don't earn very much.
Well, they had two pretty good speakers there already.
Well,
no, she backed out because she wasn't being paid.
Anyway,
I'm sorry, excuse me.
We're
Paris, what about the generational divide? Because that is really quite striking. The under 45s would have clearly voted to stay in, and the over 45s have clearly voted to take us out.
Well, there's a great headline on Vice today which said, Grandma, what have you done? And I think that a lot of millennials will be feeling that this morning. I think it's incredibly selfish, and I personally will not forgive or forget, because the older generation don't have to live here as long as the younger generation do.
So are we going to introduce, for example, a cut-off point beyond which you can't vote? Well, are you your sense of sublime self-entitlement, are we going to have those under 35 with 2 votes?
Hang on a minute. Young people have already had so much taken away from them. I don't need to take away my airtime as well, Mr. Starkey. So what we're actually looking at is a generation of people who've... Well, you're not letting me because you're interrupting me because you're a privileged white man who just wants to speak over me. And this is the problem. Young people are getting very sick of it.
We've been discussing the sexual assault allegations against the Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein again this morning. Now, in France, they have brought forward proposals for on-the-spot fines for wolf whistling. So, this morning, we are asking, should wolf whistling be banned? To discuss this, we have the women's writer at The Telegraph, Radhika Sangani, and the assistant editor of Spiked, Ella Whelan. They are in our central London studio for us this morning. Good morning to you both. So, wolf whistling, where do we stand on that? Radhika, if somebody wolf whistles at you, what do you think?
Oh, I absolutely hate it. You know, like many women, it's happened to me my whole life. I remember the first time was when I was still wearing primary school uniform. Personally, I often feel really distressed. I absolutely hate it. I feel really uncomfortable. And depending on how severe it is, I can feel really threatened and quite scared.
Ella, what about you? If you were wolf whistled at in the street, do you have a similar reaction to Radhika?
Different strokes for different folks. I tend to roll my eyes or come up with something quick and hopefully witty to say back to the person who's behaving badly. On the topic of banning it, though, I think that makes me feel really nervous, not only because the idea of having a fine to deal with this seems like the completely wrong way to go about enacting social change, but also it just seems completely impractical. How would you do that without, having police on every street corner watching every interaction that a woman has on the road? I think it's a very bad idea.
Well, we have on-the-spot fines, Ella, for using your mobile phone at the wheel, for people who don't pick up after their dogs. Why should this be treated like that?
Recent free speech rankings survey by Spite said that 94% of UK universities have censored free speech in the past year. Some have no platform, people like Germaine Greer, Roger Scruton, and a human rights activist called Miriam Namazi. Are you happy with that?
I don't believe it's censorship. I believe that freedom of speech is also freedom to accept the consequences of that speech. And if that means that certain institutions don't want to promote or give you a platform to say these things, then you have to accept that.
Really?
Yes, I do.
That's not curtailing freedom of speech.
No, I don't think it is. People like Germaine Greer.
But you've just taken away the freedom of these people to speak at the university.
They can speak wherever they like, but freedom of speech is not freedom to be invited wherever you want.
What's the point of a university if you don't allow a variety of views to be expressed?
A variety of views, that's absolutely fine.
Well, clearly not if you're Germaine Greer.
I think if students are being asked to pay increasingly higher fees, and I think that if they object to people like Germaine Greer, Julie Bindel, Milo Yiannopoulos being given frequently pretty hefty speaking fees themselves and be given a platform at their university, then I think they have a right.
Julie Bindel doesn't take fees for that. Julie Bindel does not take fees, and she has worked for 30 years raising awareness of violence against women and done so, you know, thanklessly, and for her to be barred from universities simply because she has a different view to you or some of the people in that university about transgender issues is a disgrace, as it is with Peter Tatchell.
Hold on. Let
say that they're getting money for it, it's absolutely legal.
Kate Welsh.
I think Julie Bindel has done some fantastic things for women's issues. I will not decry that. I do believe that she has frequently incited hatred against transgender people, and that puts...
But she hasn't. She's defended transgendered people. I've heard her do it. She's done it to me. I've spoken to her about it. She's defended transgender people where all she does is cleave to the notion, which is actually a scientific fact, whether you like it or not, which is that someone who has transitioned from a man to a woman is still technically, essentially, if you wish to call it, essentially a man.
Men think it's legitimate to tell women who publish on the internet, to tell women journalists and women politicians that their voices are less meaningful, to sexualise and denigrate the appearance of women. And this is the thing that stops women from speaking out, stops women being on the internet. This is the thing that creates Gamergate, where men think it is legitimate to threaten women with violence if they don't shut up. And this is the discourse to which you are actively participating. And that is the problem. It means that all of these people whose voices should be heard in a principle of freedom of speech are not heard. I'll take you now. No? No PR1?
Yes,
Go
indeed.
for it.
Yeah, you said at the beginning that you didn't read our columns, and it's absolutely evident from what you've said this evening that you don't.
Okay. Don't worry, I do my research. And the thing I'm referring to is when Peter Hitchens said about the rapes that had occurred in Oxford, that obviously the fact that these were Muslims was important, because if you engage in a discourse where you think of other people as infidel and think of other people as lesser, that makes you more likely to be a rapist. That's why Muslims are more likely to be rapists. Exactly what you said.
Where? When?
2013. Look it up. You wrote it. Google it.
I didn't.
Right.
I didn't.
Okay.
You got the wrong person.
The problem is that this is. I mean, obviously, I did my research before the break. That's just moronic to say that I didn't. Check it yourself. You should remember what you write, especially when it's that offensive.
You should get a new search engine.
The reason is that this also leads to harm, right? The reason why this discourse is so instrumental is trans people's preferred pronouns and actively misgenders them in his national newspaper columns is engaged in a discourse of censorship. He is saying, this is language to which I object. People calling themselves she when I think they are male is a language to which I object. I'm not going to recognise it, and I'm going to say that it is wrong. That is engaging in the discourse of censorship. It's also so arrogant to engage in that discourse when you are not a stakeholder in it. It matters nothing to you whether or not a trans person chooses to identify in whatever way, but you are so arrogant as to think that you are allowed to censor them from doing that. Utterly repulsive. No, thank you. I'm coming to you, don't worry. Peter Hitchens, when you write that a discourse of Islam is what causes Muslim men to rape, You are engaged in a discourse of censorship. You are saying that the discourse of Islam is something that is wrong, something that should not be allowed, something that you object to. Yeah, go for it.
Is it not true that to have a different opinion isn't the same as telling other people that they shouldn't have or they can't have that opinion?